Hey everyone, I'm Chelsea from the BuildBook support team, and today we're going to go over how to create selection categories and the selections inside of those categories. So to start, first off, if you haven't seen our selections overview, I would definitely take a look at that. That's going to kind of go over what selections are and how they kind of work within the rest of the project. This video is going to be going over more about the selections and how to create them and manage them. To kind of recap for you, selections are going to be made up of two types of objects. So your selection category, which is right here, and then the selections inside or the new items inside. Each category is going to be a placeholder or like a container for all of these different types of things that go within that category. So for example, I have my category for lighting. That could be my entire house's lighting. This could be for my master bathroom, my guest bathroom, my kitchen, my dining room, my basement, my pot lights in my house that are like recessed lighting. All of that can be included within lighting. So it kind of gives you a spot to put everything in that you can easily manage instead of having, living room lighting in just one selection. And then, another kitchen lighting and just one selection. This allows you to put everything in the same category so that it's easier for you to manage. It's also usually easier for clients to review information within the categories so they know that this is the particular category for just lighting. They know that this is the particular category for their plumbing fixtures, so their faucets, their toilets, all of that. This is the category for their tile. So any of the tile work that you're doing in the house, this can all kind of add to that particular category, whereas each of the categories is made up of individual items. So that's where you're going to have like the bulk of your selections and where you're going to create a lot of your selection types is going to be in here is your items. Now you can create a new selection category from your selections tab, or you can create it from the budget and the financials. There are some pros and cons to doing both, but the first thing I want to tell you is that if you create a selection category and you delete it out of your budget or your selections, it is going to delete it out of both options for you. So if I had windows and I just said, I don't need the windows, and I click on delete, it's going to delete not only the budget item, so the windows, but all of the selection items that were inside. So I personally like to create my selection categories within my budget so I can see how that kind of messes with things. But if I'm going to manage that type of information, like delete it or anything, I actually like to go through my selections tab because, again, if I delete something from my budget that I don't see has selections inside, there is no way to recover it. That means all of that work that you've just put in to add these selections is now gone. So I like to create my selection categories from the budget. And again, the reason why I personally like to do that is because I want to see how it plays with my budget first. So I can click on add item. And if I wanted to, I could click on, this exterior doors right here, or I could just create my own selection item right here. So I can then choose doors. I could either choose, general, windows, shower doors and mirrors. I'm just going to choose full enclosure. And then this is where the type comes into play. So if you want it to be a selection or a selection category, you're going to choose the type selection. Once you do that, you're going to notice that all of that additional information, such as tax, markup, all of that goes away. If you are adding tax and markup to your selections and therefore your selection category, you want this allowance to reflect all of that. So we don't have a way to break up the allowance based on, quantity, markup, cost, anything like that. This allowance is essentially a placeholder amount. It's an estimated amount of what you think you're more than likely going to spend on exterior doors, knowing that it could come in under or go over that at any point in time. So that's why we say the allowance for selections, you're not able to add taxes and things to. It has to be built into the allowance because that is the entire amount that you plan on spending on that category, including your markup and including your taxes. We have some pretty serious doors that we're going to be doing for this particular client. So we're going to add in a pretty large allowance right here. And then we're going to click on save. Now, once you do that, it's going to fall into the category, the cost category that you have it in. And you'll notice that the type selection is right here. It's going to say not started. And when I click on this, you'll notice it's going to look a lot like a selection category. So like I said, you can delete items through your price or your budget for selections. But again, I personally would not do that. I would actually go through the selections to manage those items because again, if you accidentally delete something that has information in it, we can't recover it for you. Now that I have my new selection in here, I can pull it up to the top by clicking on that ellipsis and arrange categories. And I can move this up. Done. And now we can create some new selections with inside. So to do that, I'm going to click on new selection. I'm going to name the selection. So this is going to be a front door. This is going to be for the exterior of the house. This is the category. So the cost or the selection category that it belongs to, not the cost category. And then of course, a status. You're going to have open, pending, ordered, shipped, delivered, installed, and complete. Really quickly, as far as selections go, we do not consider a selection complete and therefore reflect correctly on the budget until it is marked as complete. So even if you have it as delivered, installed, it's been approved by the client, it will not reflect correctly on the budget until it's completed. And the reason for that is because we know things change within construction, and we also know that sometimes it's really hard to create a ton of change orders for those different types of information. So in that case, even it might be installed and the client might come in and say, oh, we hate it. And that point you have to remove it. It is a change order, but it's not technically one because this isn't completed. So you could literally go in and just change all of this information to update. But that's going to be the basis for these statuses. The rest of these statuses are just for you to be able to track things that are happening. But until every selection item in this category is completed, it's not going to reflect the true amount on the budget. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. Now I'm ready to essentially add a product name. So I'm going to put, Gothic exterior front door. I can put in the amount for this particular door. I can put in the description. And then I can add an image for this particular door. And then once I'm done, I can click on save. Now, if I had multiple doors that I wanted to add, then I could add those here. So if you have different types of options for your client to pick through, you can definitely do that here. I can click on add new option, and then this is where I can create another set of the doors. So now I can add a new product name. I could put something completely different. I could put the manufacturer for this particular product. So it's Layton. I could put in the amount, of course. We'll make this one slightly less. Oops. Again, I can put my description and I can add my image as well. Right there. So that my client can now choose between the different types of options here. Now I'll just click save. And I'll have to click on save. I have to save this selections. So the add new option just allows you to essentially add new options and then click on save. But if you don't select save down here, it won't actually save this category for you. So I've done that several times where I've been adding in tons of information. I then add in a new option. I think I've clicked on save. I click out here, outside of here or something like that. It doesn't save any of my information. So I like to save this really quickly as soon as I'm done adding things in. And then you'll notice when I've done this, it's created one selection for me. So it's not going to show you the multiple types of options, but when you click on front door, it's going to show you the different options here. If I want to add a new selection item, so maybe I need to add in my garden door, I can then add my rooms again, which is the exterior. It's going to come into the selection category. I'll leave the status as open. I can then put in my product name. I can put in my amount. I can add my image here. And then I can add in my description if I want to. I'll click on save, and then again, click on save down here, and it'll create a brand new selection item for you. So that's how selection items are meant to be worked. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that as you begin adding things to here, you'll notice that this remaining starts to drop, of course. Now, if you go over the remaining balance like I did here, you'll notice that that is reflected in red right there. You can click on this at any point in time and see your remaining at any point in time. So you can see the allowance, so you can see the remaining, any of that type of information you can see here. But one of the things I want to show you is that on the budget, these items are again not going to be reflected until they're complete or they go over the amount. So I'll show you what that looks like. So for example, we had originally estimated about $105,000 for windows, but after we've created the selection, we've added that item in, we notice that we are going over by about $3,700. So in that case, the budget is designed to automatically show you that this is now going over without that selection item needing to be complete. And the reason for this is because we want to identify very quickly for you that something is going well over budget. But what you'll notice is as far as these exterior doors and things like that, we have this estimated at about 30,000 allowance, and that even though I've added in doors that go under that allowance, it's not going to reflect that right here until all items in the selection are completed. So again, the category is kind of the container for all of these items, and it's not going to reflect this remaining balance or this true balance until these items are completed because they could still potentially change. So we'll just go in here and complete some of these items so that you'll see what that looks like here shortly. Let's click on it one more time. Garden door. Complete. And now you'll notice when I complete this, it's going to change that price pretty quickly. It's going to reflect now the correct price because all items in the selection are completed. If I uncomplete one particular item, it's going to go back to the $30,000 mark because it's saying that not all items are completed. Now, as you're building selections, you may want to check through some information. So you can always do that by switching from category to room view. So maybe I want to see how things are laying out or what they look like. You're going to notice that any type of item that has been completed is going to have this little green check mark right here, essentially saying that this is the particular door that we've chosen or that has been completed. This does not show you necessarily that something has been approved by the client. It is only going to show you the projected picture. So if my clients actually want this door, what I'll just need to do is click on this little ellipsis menu and set as the projected option. Now, when I go back, you'll notice that the front door is now this particular projected option and not the other one. Clients also have the ability to do this. This is the client view side, and this is going to essentially show you what the client's view looks like when it comes to selections. So they'll be able to see essentially the same things that you do. They can click on this, and they won't see any of that type of information like you can, like the cost code or anything like that, but they'll be able to see the allowance and what is currently remaining at this point in time. Additionally, when they have different types of options, they'll be able to choose through the types of options. So right now I set this one as the pro as my projected price, but they can always choose to set a different projected price if they want to. So if they wanted to see how this projected price actually handles their leftover amount, then they can do that really quickly. They can go back through and change this and use this as a projected price to see how that affects their remaining. This is really nice for a lot of our clients because it kind of allows them to control what they're spending. So for instance, I went well over on this particular category for the windows. I know that I'm over by $3,700. I want to try to break even. I want to make up that $3,700 somewhere else. So this is perfect. I'm going to choose, my particular front door. I'm going to choose, maybe I'll choose the less expensive one because I know that that gives me an additional $7,000 to potentially use elsewhere. I might be able to go through and see that I have, like my lighting, I have about $8,000 left. So that allows me to make plans about how much I can actually spend and how to control that. Clients don't have the ability to control the budget, but this is how they can make really well-informed decisions on what selections look like for them, how that affects their remaining balances, and if they have an overage somewhere like here, they know that they can spend a little bit more somewhere else. So it just gives them some different options in respect to how they handle their selections and how they essentially use them. Now, once I'm ready, I can go to, my front door. We'll put this back to open because that's typically what'll happen. We can then send this entire category to approval from the client. So you'll just click on the ellipsis menu. You'll click on request approval from client. And then essentially it'll say like to send an approval, your client must be a user in the project and have permission to access selections. You'll just click on OK. And then of course, since I don't have anybody invited just yet to this project, it's not going to essentially send that approval. But once it does, I'll show you what that looks like. So once it does, you'll essentially see an approval right here that will say pending. And then you can click here. And if you click on that ellipsis menu again, it'll say cancel client approval, or you could just mark this projected option as approved. We do give you the ability to mark those options as approved just so that you can go through, if you're sitting with a client and they're speaking to you and they're saying, yeah, I want that selection, I want that selection. Instead of sending them each one as approved, you can literally just go through and mark these as approved yourself. That way you don't have to actually, wait for the client's approval or anything like that. You'll notice that you're not able to do this. Like, so if I try to click on this, just like so, you're not able to do it while the approval request is pending. So you'll just cancel the client approval request and then mark it as approved. And it will tell you that it was approved by you and when and the time. Hopefully that goes over everything that you need to know about selections, of course. But if you do have questions, you have questions about how your client can interact with these, how to best utilize selections, definitely reach out to us at any point in time by clicking on that question mark help icon. And as always, happy building.